to Collected Couch Conversations, a candid series about leadership and organizational development. I'm Rebecca Cook, and I'm here with my colleague Richie Vico, and today we're speaking about...
conflict.
Spicy.
Yeah, nice. To start us off, Rebecca, what's your view on conflict, and has it changed over the years?
Yeah, it definitely has changed over the years. I think that... Well, first of all, I think like an awareness of we're just profoundly shaped by our family systems, our communities. I think when it comes to conflict, and I think we're given scripts around what conflict or clashes in opinion or disagreements mean. And so for me, growing up, I was in a family where it was like, kind of sweep it under the rug. Like I felt like I feel like I'm evolving from quite a conflict avoidant perspective, where it was of value in my family system to keep the peace. And I think with an awareness of that, I have been able to say, how does this serve me, and in what ways does this not serve me? Both as like a leader and in my professional life, but also in my personal life. So it's definitely evolved for me. Now I would like to invite myself and other people to see conflict really as a bid for intimacy. You know, and as an opportunity for a connection. Like, can we share our opinions or thoughts or grievances or hurts and feelings about things, and then emerge from a conversation with a deeper sense of feeling seen and a deeper sense of connection? That's how I'm inviting myself to see conflict now. And because I've seen myself both, again, in personal and professional life, like sweep things under the rug, and it just builds like resentment, or it will build like it always comes out, you know, and sometimes sideways. So, that's how I've evolved.
I don't know. And like the aspect you shared where you've had like a deeper awareness of like what conflict has, the effects of it, like sweeping under the rug has caused. What has helped you, like, in creating that awareness of conflict over the years? The
awareness? I think, hopefully throughout this series, there's, like, a thread of just, like, the importance of, like, awareness of, like, who you are, how you operate in the world, and how you got that way, I think is really important to leadership development. But honestly, Richie, I feel like it had to, like, the shoe had to pinch for me to be like, oh, maybe I should consider changing how I show up in this way. And honestly, kind of watching other people who I admire just, you know, state their observations, their feelings, their needs, their requests in ways that are not incendiary, but are just, you know, true to them, and how that can... again, lead to a greater sense of peace, not only peace between people or different parties, but internal peace. But honestly, for me, I don't think I came about it in any sort of enlightened way. I think I just stuffed things, even small things, and then realized, like, gosh, I'm walking around like resentful towards people I like, you know, even colleagues, and I don't want to do that. Yeah. Okay. There's like a heaviness there, I think.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And can you share with us like a time where you were in conflict, and how did you navigate that, or how did you approach it?
Yeah. Okay, so many times. Because that's the thing. I think I would love for our team to just normalize the fact that, like, we're passionate individuals on a shared mission, yes, but we're passionate about what we do. And so with that passion, like, we'll have different ideas about how to get to this shared vision we have. And that's actually a really great thing, to have people who really care about what they're doing. So I think that it's inevitable. And I just think in, like, beyond the work sphere, I think, like, conflict is inevitable. And ruptures even in trust between people are inevitable. We're fallible. But I think repair is always an option and something that can actually strengthen relationships and trust and connection in a really valuable, worthwhile way. Like, it's worth rumbling. I don't think we actually have conflict with people we absolutely do not care about, or I wouldn't choose necessarily to have conflict with someone I'm never going to see again. Doesn't really impact my life beyond, you know, a momentary feeling of distress. Like, I would rather rumble with someone who I'm like, oh, I care about you and I want to be in relationship with you, and to do that in this way, I have to, you know, share what's on my heart and mind. So anyways, I would want to normalize conflict as part of our culture, and I want to normalize conflict in my own life if connection is something I care about. But now I've stalled on giving you an example.
It's okay.
Okay. Richie, some of my conflicts are so small. It will be one time we had a funder coming over to our office for this visit that our whole team was really invested in its outcome and honestly a little nervous for. And a team member I really trust and enjoy, just on that day, we didn't know where the keys were and we were all locked out of the office and I was already feeling nervous. And I just think that I wasn't able to just say, hey, we're outside of the office for an hour. That makes me feel more nervous going into this meeting. My request next time is, can we please just make copies, or can we please have a contingency plan to make sure that we're in a place where everybody gets to feel settled and at their best selves before meetings. And instead of just acknowledging that, because it's a mistake, these things happen.
Yeah.
And we navigated the whole thing and it was totally fine. But because I didn't say that, I just kind of stewed about it for a few days because I was trying to tell myself it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. We can handle all of these things. It's not a big deal. But because I wasn't just able to say that, I just feel like I held on to it in a way that wasn't healthy. So anyways, that's an example of conflict and not necessarily well. And then obviously when I said it, it's almost like a relief because people know oftentimes also when they mess up. So it feels so helpful to just be yep, we're on the same page about what happened. Yeah, we're on the same page about how we don't want that to happen again going forward. So that's an example. I think I'm just thinking of times where I've had disagreements with board members or have felt disappointed by things. And it's so much of it, my personal journey is about not letting things go unspoken, just voicing things so that they can be brought into daylight. I think I grew up with a spiritual tradition where it was there were Bible verses that said, and the truth will set you free. And I kind of think that's true.
Yeah.
I think bringing things from the darkness into the light, even if you don't know what's going to happen when...
You bring it to light.
Exactly. When the sunshine comes, you're not sure. But I just think there is a freedom there. And I know that, Richie, but it's a total journey for me to just be choose courage over the comfort of staying quiet or small. Trust the resilience of your relationships to be able to overcome differences in opinion. That's my journey. I think I'm also curious about, I feel on our programs team we also had a bit of, I don't know if we'd call it conflict. But I think,
Group conflict?
Yeah, I think we did have a bit of group conflict in the last 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you want to talk about your experience
Yeah.
with that and how that played out.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think like during that group conflict, what I was just amazed was like in that aspect of creating a safe space or a safe container where we could actually now have really solid and open, vulnerable conversations about what was not working out, both as individuals and also like how that aspect of like as an individual, if you drop a ball or if you're not working on your tasks, how it contributes to everyone else feeling like disrupted and challenged in like what they have to deliver. So that aspect was just like really creating a safe space and a safe container for people to, as you say, like voice out and bring like the truth to light, I think was like one really powerful. And also during like when we had like that problem solving team meeting, I enjoyed the aspect where like we were each committing to like, okay, this is what we're going to do to make it right, or this is what we're going to do to make it better for myself and for everyone. So I really appreciated that aspect of where there was a safe space, and we built such a great culture where there's already high levels of trust within people, so people are open enough to be vulnerable. So that space allowed for us to really problem solve from a space of trust. So so that's one thing I really admired and liked how Metis handled that.
Yeah. Yeah, I really admired how he handled that too. I guess for like, maybe for people watching, the backstory is essentially we, like happens in different seasons of life, we sometimes drop balls. But there was a problem where different team members weren't transparent about the balls that were dropping and actually said, oh no, they're fine, they're not dropped at all. And then, that caused kind of distrust and resentment and anxiety for other team members, and people had to step in. And so that caused frustration. And this happened not just once, but a couple of times. And so, and as is appropriate, like you weren't privy to all the back conversations that we're having, but I think like our management team did an exceptional job of really learning how to, like voice, their observations and their feelings about what was happening, and then listen to the observations and feelings of others. Yeah, exactly. And then, share them their needs and their requests to others. And I think that a lot about, I think, nonviolent communication and how that really can transform interpersonal relationships. But I saw our team be able to do that really well at a management team level, and then be able to work that out as necessary within the programs team. And then collectively, the team came together and was able to just be on the same page about, here are our challenges, here's how we feel about them, and then use the Metis way to be able to come up with solutions. But I'm curious for you, like I kind of mentioned it, but can you tell us about nonviolent communication?
Okay, great.
As our resident peace and development studies major.
Yeah. So I studied justice, peace, and conflict studies, which later name got changed to peace and development. But under conflict studies, we studied about nonviolent communication, and this, it's a really powerful way of like just having your needs, voicing your needs. And also I think one of the big parts that really sticks out for me is identifying like feelings. I think that's one aspect, like when we're hurt, like there's a lot going on. And for me personally, in my own journey, like I've just felt either sad, disappointment, and anger, and those are like the feelings which I've navigated around and thinking like I'm actually really navigating the issue. But this tool, or I can say like the book Nonviolent Communication, like really helped me like identify like the needs of the feelings, and also like what the need is in regards to like any conflict I have, even an interpersonal conflict like I have within myself. So it's really helped navigate interpersonal relationships, but also, and I love the aspect you said, like you're in conflict with people who you're in relationship with, or people who you want to be committed in a committed relationship with, and that spans from personal to like also work. So one really powerful way is like realizing like how sometimes when you're also in conflict, what you say can either make it worse or it can invite like that aspect of connection. So over the years, what I have, I mean, yeah, there's one thing knowing it on a book, like studying it in school, but then now putting it in practice. And honestly, that has been a challenge. But over the years, I've realized like the tone, the temperament, and choice of words have been really crucial in like how I navigate conflict. And so like nonviolent communication, I actually usually want to call it effective communication, because when people hear the word nonviolent, they're like, "Am I violent?" So it can be a triggering word for some people. So I think it's just an aspect of like how do we have effective communication that nurtures connection, that nurtures like that trust that's really there in like a relationship. And also conflict is a way to I think it's Mahatma Gandhi that says peace is not like the absence of conflict, but it's actually how we navigate it. Like a conflict invites us to really connect, or it can also cause like separation or further like distance. So for me, like I realized like the tone, temperament, and choice of words have really helped me navigate conflict in any space in any area.
That's so cool. I love that quote. I love how you view conflict. And how have you seen yourself get better at that? Or have, it was one thing to read it in a book, you said, and another thing to kind of practice it over the last 10 years. Like what would you say to other folks who are starting that journey? I
also love the aspect of awareness. I mean, the book, like reading about it, attending a training about nonviolent communication will create definitely that awareness. But I think at the heart of it all, I also feel, I'll share my journey, like the conflict that we reside within our own selves. How do you actually even resolve that? Can it be resolved? I think one, community, like people who can like really help you navigate conflict, and also I can vouch for therapy because therapy also like really helped me understand my feelings really in a deeper way. And I usually tell this like to anyone like who's thinking about therapy, like it expanded the compassion and grace I have for myself, which in turn expanded the compassion and grace that I have for others. So I can say those two things have like really helped me. I've been able to be in conflict like with people I care about, and like seeing like the ways like we can navigate that together, and also like just for me knowing myself even better. And I think you also mentioned it's a journey like we're navigating. So there might be a conflict like we're really good at handling or navigating, and then there's maybe something or a conflict that we don't know how to navigate. And I think having that space to also reflect on like, did I handle this really well? Did this live to my values as a person? I think like the things that keep me grounded and centered around like navigating conflict.
Richie, thanks so much for sharing. It sounds like, and I really relate to that as well, it being a journey, and then having community and individuals and professionals be able to hold space for me so that I can grow in that. That's been really a gift in my own life. The last, I always feel like I should almost be done by therapy now, any moment now. No. I'm really grateful to still have that tool in my life and that relationship in my life, because this bit around that self-awareness and how that just enables you to show up with, in our case, with teammates, with fellows, with partners, with, like just with our community, I think is so essential. And something that stood out to me when I was listening to you speak was your ability to just create space for you to identify how you feel about things, or even identify post or during conflict. How am I showing up? How am I doing in this? I think there's like there's a practice of stillness that it sounds like you've created for yourself, a spaciousness to just be able to like pause in that I really admire that in you, and that's something that I'm really trying to work on, because I'm going to misquote this person, I think, but there was someone who said, between a stimuli and your reaction, there's a space. And in that space lies your freedom.
Oh, okay. It's a powerful one. I've never heard of that one.
Yeah. I don't know who said that. It was a wise man.
The space between your stimuli and what is it?
Your response or reaction. Stimuli, response. In that space lies your freedom. And so that pause. And I think that's really interesting in the context of Metis and our organization, because I think you might agree with me that it feels like a very rapid paced environment, and we're moving a lot, and we've got a lot of things going on, and there are a lot of fellows, and there's we all have busy, full, beautiful lives. And it can sometimes feel like on a startup journey that you're flying by the seat of your pants. And I think it becomes even more of a discipline, and a beautiful discipline, to just be like, where are my moments of pause where I can check in with self, where I can check in with others, so that I can navigate the stresses that do come with building an organization or building a program, as you do, with the grace and intentionality that it requires, bumps along the way.
I feel like you've already shared it, but I would be curious to, what are some of the tools you've used to navigate conflict? Like, if you can just, I think you mentioned some of them.
So our team has, nonviolent communication, I think, is something that I've seen our team use, and the steps for that are, okay, Richie, help me if I'm wrong, but identifying your observations of what you've seen. Then your feelings around what you've seen or observed, and then your needs. Like my need for this is I need to feel safe. I need to feel that you're reliable. There's a set of supported. There's a list of universal human needs that also I think is pretty expansive, and then a request, which the other person might not be able to meet, but that you still get to make a request and ask. So those are the 4 steps that I think are helpful. I would say the other thing, Richie, before we even necessarily get into conflict, I love our review process at Metis. And I think it's been beautiful, especially as an executive director, to have this framework of within we have these weekly one-on-ones, of course, but we also have quarterly reviews that include a 2x2 framework that's bi-directional. So I'll always hear from management team, like, here are 2 things you're doing great and next steps, and here are 2 things that are not going great and next steps, or here's where you can improve. And I think that's really helpful. So I think creating systems for feedback loops is essential, especially since, and again, we talked about like family of origin and your scripts around conflict, especially for folks who are coming from more conflict avoidant spaces, that this is just a regular part of our culture. It's okay. I'm just normalizing too. We might come from cultures where you don't give feedback upwards. So just creating systems to kind of even avoid anything having to erupt later on, I think is really helpful. And then from the Management Center website, which is also a treasure trove of resources that are helpful, there's something called Seesaw. So, and it's just how to give and receive better feedback. And the C is for connect and get consent. The S is for sharing observations and impact of what you've seen and felt. And then ask questions. And then W is for the way forward. So connect, share, ask, way forward is Seesaw. And I think that framework is kind of helpful to keep in mind when, I could have used that with this, leader when with the office conundrum or like small things, just to be like, hey, do you have a moment? Can I give you some feedback? Is now a good time? and then I think what you're saying about time and temperament and place, like how do you pick a place where someone's not going to like feel defensive? I think we're a very empathetic team, but thinking through like, and getting consent to say like, is this the right time for this conversation, and just getting someone's buy-in, and then offering, hey, I noticed this is how it made me feel. Were you aware of that? How was that for you? Was there a plan I didn't know about? Just asking questions. How did we get here? And then understanding their perspective, or would you like to share how that was for you? And then kind of charting the next steps the next time, or going forward, I will. For like smaller things, so that they don't even end up in conflict, I think can be helpful. So seesaw, nonviolent communication, just creating a culture. I think what you were saying too about having a culture of trust to begin with, I think is really essential. Like the first time you're having a deep conversation with a teammate, hopefully is not when you're like, I really felt disappointed with you, right? Or I felt really hurt. On a weekly basis, we're creating systems that build trust and goodwill. And I think that's the same for our fellows too. Like the first time we're engaging with fellows shouldn't be like, hey, you haven't paid your fees, or hey, you didn't do your homework, you didn't come on time to COL. Like I think we have to build that reserve of safety and trust, and we can do that through positive interactions. I think it filters down to when I was a teacher. It was like I did site visits to every one of my kindergarten kids in their families' homes for many reasons. One of them was so that I could build a relationship with them on their own turf, in a place where they felt comfortable, sharing a meal, hearing about their dreams for their kid, hearing about their life, what they're proud about, and just building that baseline. Because inevitably, if you're parenting or teaching a 5-year-old, stuff is going to come up, and we're going to need to work together. Or like a kid is going to make a choice that you need to communicate to a parent, and I didn't want my first interaction to be like, hey, I need you to come into my office. So I think building that reserve is something that's helpful, both within our Metis team, but then hopefully I think these things also have ripple effect on our fellows and our alum, and then their organizations and institutions. And I really hope that if we can be in practice, we're not going to be perfect, but if we can be in practice with even and aligning conflict to our Metis values, that will have a profound ripple effect across our community and really across the country. That's my hope.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing about conflict and how you've navigated it and the tools. Actually, what I've seen at Metis, like you really created a culture, like a way to promote that positive, open conflict. Actually, that's what the word. Open conflict, because it's usually two types of conflict: open and closed. So closed is the one that which we're all taught, like sweep it under the rug. You can't have conflict with your seniors, but open conflicts like invites that connection and that building of relationship. So I think you've done an amazing job in creating that culture.
Thank you. No, we all have really nurtured that, and I think one other thing I've heard, like there's something that struck my mind. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they referred to that closed conflict as tension. When there's that felt tension, and they said that tension was just conflict holding its breath.
Wow.
Like just like that. Anyway, that really speaks to that. I would hope for a world and a work environment where we are free and not tense.
Thank you. That was a really lovely conversation, Rebecca.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Thanks so much, Richie.